Hi there, welcome to Towan Talks Cardfight. Today I'm doing a new deck profile. This is my Nectar deck profile. It's been requested for me to redo this one, as I did do it on Cardfight area before, and as I've virtually got all the cards, I'm just waiting for my perfect cards at the moment. They're on the way here from a friend from Reddit. This deck is all about getting lots of cheap pluses, lots of on hits, trying to get this overwhelm them with field advantage, which is created from hitting the Vanguard. So rather than using up your hand to create a field advantage, you're using up your other resources like your counterblast, your soul, moving cards in and out from the field to the deck to try and give yourself a field advantage. You then, once you've done this, you then go into your late game into swinging for numbers, lots of numbers, trying to abuse the different abilities of your cards to try and hit good numbers consistently, and just keep on going and try and outlast them. It's very high pressure, like really high pressure. There's so many on hit effects, it's beyond comparable to almost anything else. This deck's very consistent. I have only ever really struggled with this deck against Legion decks, and that's the Legion decks which repeat Legion, so you're getting your deck yourself out rather than actually losing. So this deck is very good, very good. Alright, now I'll go on to deck profile now. Okay, and we'll start with the starting Vanguard, which as usual that'll come first, followed by triggers, then go up through there. Starting Vanguard is Maiden of Physalis. This card is incredibly good. Her skill, which everyone should know, Spring Breeze Messenger. Right? She's basically a free Spring Breeze Messenger. When an attack hits that this card boosts, you put it into the soul and check the top 5 cards of your deck for a grade 1 and call it at rest. With the way this deck works, this is incredibly good because you can do that and then set up for your next turn's play, or get out your ideal booster, things like that. You get to set up incredibly well using this card. This card is one of the biggest cards in the deck. I would run more of it if it wasn't for the fact the rest of the cards need to be run the way they are, otherwise you're not going to be able to get the most out of the deck. Okay, this is like the best booster in the game. Okay, next up it's just onto the trigger lineup. Very basic. Not what I can say. It's the 4 heals. Right, I'm running 4 draw as well because I'm sticking with the maidens. This is Maiden of Eggplant. I'm trying to get as many maiden cards in here as possible. Now, I said very standard. This is completely not standard at all. This is something completely crazy which I'm doing because this deck relies so much on hit pressure from your rear guards, so much on being able to abuse the fact you're getting pluses all over the place. Right? First up, there's 4 and then 8 stand triggers. Okay, 8 stand triggers. This is very unorthodox, but because of the way the deck works, you're running 8 because it works. This deck, you're going for so much on hit pressure, you want to be running 8, and you restand your rear guards, go for as many on hit stacks as you can possibly do, and it works incredibly well. Like, you don't have the crits because the way the deck works, you're not playing to just crit them to death. It's not exactly a blast bolt crits all over the place or dungaree 12 crit hit big numbers. This is you're going to wear them down, force them to guard everything you can, and then beat them through their hand. Just keep attacking until they can't guard anymore. It works incredibly well because of the fact you're standing all the time, you're using your on-hit prep effects to get as much pluses on your field as possible, and you get lots of good card advantage from it. Because you're not using your hand, you're using your field to get all your advantage. Okay, next up, I'm going to our grade 1s. We have 4 Corolla Dragon, 8k vanilla. I don't usually run 8k vanillas, but this deck, it's very good because with this and Maiden of Venus Reverse, you can counterblast 1, you swing for a 21. You counterblast 2, you swing for a 23. It's good numbers, and it seems to work rather well. And the other reasons why you can run it as well, if you're using Maiden of Reverse, you can lock a card, then call this one from your deck, and it's a 13k booster, which with Maiden of Reverse, you're swinging for 24. Right? That's a good number, to be honest. You swing it across rides for a good number. There's a lot of things like that. It's just little subtleties which you get from having these cards. So, like I said, 4 Corolla Dragon. Next up, we've got 4 of one of the key cards of the deck. This is 4 Maiden of Cherrystone, sticking with the Maiden theme. This one is a very good effect. When this unit boosts another Nectar unit, which hits the Vanguard, you can put this card on top of your deck, search your deck for the Grade 2, Maiden of Cherry Blossom, and call it at rest. They're very, very, very good cards because of the way that they work. You pop this one back to your deck to call out the other one, and the other one has an effect to call this one back out. So you're just getting pluses all over the place. You're getting a plus to your front row. So at grade 1 you can have a grade 2 there to intercept. So you've already got an interceptor before they've even gotten to grade 2 yet. So it's very good, and that's why I'm using it. Next on, like I said, 4 perfect cards. Unfortunately I don't have the perfect cards at the moment, so I've just got placeholder cards like usual. If I don't have card placeholders, there's four perfect cards. I'm sticking with the Maidens because Maiden deck, and yeah, they're on their way, and this is staple in any deck. 4 Maidens, so 4 perfect cards in any deck is staple. Right. Next up, I'm running 2 of the Lady of Sunlit Forest. Right. She's a Lien clone, so you rest her, you drop a card from your hand, and then you draw a card. Cycling cards, it's useful. It's very good because you can, if you have this card out, you can, like, if you ride it on your first turn, you can tap it, drop a card, draw a card, and that's before if you're going first, you get a free cycle in your hand. It speeds the deck up a little bit, and because you're running stand triggers, you don't really need to worry about the fact you're resting it for it not to be boosted, because you could stand it again and use it for a boost. So it's just useful to have. It's one of the cards which is very useful, which is why Lien is very useful as well. Same reason, you can cycle your cards, you can use it as your first ride, etc, etc. Very good. Okay, on to our next set of cards. First up we have 4 damage on flippers. This is White Rose Musketeer Alberto. Okay, good card. When this card hits the Vanguard, unflip 1 damage. Useful, very useful, because your counterblast are precious in this deck. You want to have as many open as possible to be able to abuse the effects of your cards. Okay, next up, 4 of the Maiden of Cherry Blossom. This card is like one of the stars of the deck. Like, beyond belief, this card is so good for pressure. When this card hits from the Vanguard or Rearguard circle, you can counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1 to superior call a Cherry Stone from your deck at rest. Okay, so you pay the cost, you call it the 7k booster at rest. Then you can use stand triggers to stand up the booster to be able to have it boost another column. Or you've set yourself up for your next turn to have a booster to be able to keep on going, replacing your field if it gets retired. It's just generally you getting lots of pluses all over the place. Because a Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1 is rather cheap for a call effect. Like, there's lots of cards which have call effects which are a lot more expensive. Like, let's go for Battle Flag Constance. That's a Counterblast 2 when it hits. Or Ikane, Counterblast 2, call from the deck. Or we go for something that's coming out, is a Seeker Stand trigger, which when it boosts, if the attack hits, you retire the unit to replace it. So this is a lot cheaper and it's a lot more effective because you don't really have much else that uses. You don't have any other use for the soul other than this card's effect. So yeah, it's a very good card. Next up, I'm running 4 Maiden of Rainbow Wood, Maiden of Libra Clone. So it's Counterblast 2, when this card hits you draw a card. So it can hit anything, so you attack a rear guard, it hits, Counterblast 2, draw. It's more on hit pressure, it's just trying to force the fact that your rear guards are doing all of the work. You're trying to force them to guard, because they don't want to give you pluses like that. So if a Counterblast 2 to draw a card, that's a plus. You're just getting lots of pluses from always constantly hitting with all these on-hit effects. And having an entire grade 2 lineup that can all do something when they hit the Vanguard, or when they hit, just, it makes so much of a difference. And it gives you such a massive boost over almost every other grade 2 lineup you can go for. Only, I think Blau has a very strong grade 2 lineup. This one does as well. They both It's just very strong. Until you play it, you don't realise just how much pressure this deck causes just by having this grade 2 lineup. Okay, next up I'm running 4 Maiden of Training Rose. This is a very good card. It's one of the very old cards as well. It's one of the first Nectar cards to be released. Let's go for its first set. It's continuous, where if you have a card which isn't Nectar, I believe, if you have a non-Nectar Vanguard or Rearguard, it loses 2k. You're not going to have that. You're just not, because you're in a Nectar deck. Yeah. Next up we have its main ability, which is very, very good. This is your pre-limit break Vanguard, and because of the cost for its ability, it's so cheap and there's lots of pluses all over the place. Counterblast 1, Persona Blast, so drop a version of it from your hand. When this card hits the Vanguard, check top 5 cards of your deck and call up to 2 cards from it. So you hit with this, you then Persona Blast, drop a card, and then you can call 2. Yeah, and that's just the amount of on-hit pressure you get from that with your rearguard sight. Because of the way it works, you attack with this, you get any stand triggers you want. You can then stand up some rearguards, like maybe stand the front row with plus 5Ks, things like that, and then replace your boosters or replace the front row with another unit from your top 5, because you can just call on top, replace, and get extra attacks off. It's all about forcing the extra attacks. And the more extra attacks you get, the better off you are of this deck, because you're trying to force as much pressure as possible, as quickly as possible, using stand triggers and this effect, which activates from 1 damage. So this is an effect which, if it was limit break, it would be classed as a decent limit break ability if it wasn't Persona Blast. That's the only drawback, is Persona Blast, so you need to have 2 Maiden of Trading Rose when you're using it, so a little bit of drawback. Not much of one though, because it's such a high pressure card, because they don't know whether you've got the Maiden of Trading Rose in your hand. If you drive check into Maiden of Trading Rose, you get to use it then. They just don't know with this card. Okay, and last card for the deck is Maiden of Venus Trap Reverse. I'm using this one rather than the normal Maiden of Venus Trap because of its ability is a lot nicer. You limit break, you counterblast 1, lock one of your rear guards and call from the top 5 cards of your deck at any Nectar unit with plus 5k. With this card you can hit so many good numbers all of the time. You can counterblast 1, lock a card, call a card out in front of it, and you've got at least a 14k attacker generally, 14k, 16k, or you call out a 13k booster or 12k booster. You get good numbers. Combined with this card, because you can call out 2 front rows, because it's not limited to once per turn, which is the big thing about this card. Call out 2 front row units, both with plus 5k, swing with each. You normally bring out the grade 2s for this, so you swing with 14k, 14k, attack with your Vanguard. Because you're running stand triggers, stand those 2 boosted units back up, swing again, and then on the opponent's turn you intercept with those and you rinse and repeat. Generally you'd want to call out Alberto, because it's damage on flipper. If it hits, you get 1 flip damage, which means you get another free call later on. But it's effectively free. You're counterblasting 1 to unlocking a unit to get a card from your deck. You're thinning your deck so much with this thing, so you're getting so many. You're more likely to get triggers all the time when you're using this deck, and not running crits and running stands instead. You're capitalising on this card's effect and all of the on-hit pressure from the deck. Right, and now I'll go for a bit of a scenario for you. Okay, starting Vanguard. Okay, and sort of an opening hand you would expect you'd have at least 1 grade 1, maybe 2, with maybe 2 grade 2s in your hand as well, then maybe a grade 3, right? So let's say this is the opening hand you've got. So Corolla Dragon, one of each cherry, Rainbow Wood, and a Maiden of Trading Rose, right? And say your first draw is just a trigger, right? Right, cool. You've got a solid 8k base. Okay, next turn, what are you going to do? Okay, you draw, let's say you just draw into another grade 1, right? You'd ride into your Rainbow Wood, call onto the rear guard, both cherries, swing with this side. See how it hits, you pop this card back to the top of your deck, search your deck and then call out the grade 2, yeah? So then you've got a full front row. Alright, what happens now? You swing with Vanguard. Say you then drive check a stand trigger, yeah? Get to stand up one of these. If you had the damage to, you could have counterblast and used this card's skill to call out another one of the cherry stones, which would have been at rest as well. And then you could use this card's skill to get a grade 1 out. It's just you get so many free cycling of your cards to be able to get lots of pluses onto the field. And so as the deck builds up, as the game goes on, you could say you've managed to keep a decent field out, say something along the lines of this, and you've ridden into trailing rows. Okay, you've got a good field out. You're not sure what's going to happen here. You swing with one rear guard column. Okay, so that's a 16k column. Swing with it. Say it hits. You counterblast one. You soul blast the one. You then manage to call out another one of these at rest. Yeah. Then you swing with your Vanguard. They don't guard. They don't expect you to have a trailing rose in your hand. You then Persona Blast, and you've got stand trigger. Stand up here, plus 5k. You can then use a Persona Blast to call 2 replacement units from here. And bam, 2 replacement units. You've got yourself a massive plus straight off there. Lots of pluses. Yes, you've just retired 2 units, but you're getting pluses from having called these 2 fresh units out to be able to attack again and force more cards from your opponent's hand, or give yourself more damage, or attack rear guards, or try and clear out their field. Okay, as the game goes on, you'll be like intercept, taking damage. You get up to 4 damage, and then you'll be riding into your Maiden of Venus Trap Reverse. Okay, with Maiden of Venus Trap Reverse, you'll burn a couple of counter blasts. Right, so you can't blast one, lock, call, plus 5k, counter blast one, lock, plus 5k. Solid front row, and then on the next turn it will unlock, and you can use those cards again. The only real downside is if you go against Link Joker, you're going to have issues with that, but you should have already burnt them down far enough using your Maiden of Trailing Rows and without having to use your calling effects from locking, that it won't really matter. The whole point of this deck is to keep on burning away at them in a war of attrition to try and make them run out of cards in your hand so you can just keep going. And because you're going to have such a strong field advantage, it doesn't matter what cards they have in their hand because you're going to be doing better. And not much else I can really say about it other than this deck is the most consistent deck I've ever played with, and I'm a big player that's played with Royal Paladins, Gold Paladin, Shadow Paladin, all the big strong decks as well, like Kegaro and Narukami Eradicators, all these strong decks, and this one, in my opinion, is a lot better to play with. It's a lot more fun. The ability to just keep on using skills left, right and centre to give yourself plus. Lots of free cards getting pulled out of the deck, putting cards back in to get a better card out, replacing cards, locking your own cards to call out strong units, using your grade 2s as interceptors all the time. In general, this deck is just really good, and I can't sing its praises enough because it's a deck I'm taking to Worlds. I'll give you a rundown on how it goes. I'm expecting to play against the likes of the Nouvelles, the Rebirths, the Rates, all of those big decks, and I'm going to prove that this deck is a lot more, if you know what you're doing, you can beat those decks easily. And I'll come back with my report from the Worlds and tell you exactly how it went, and this deck will be the one to win. I can tell you that now. This deck is the best deck I've ever used, and I've been using all of the new decks come up with Legion as well. this deck is a lot better. Like the Legion Musketeer deck, which is the Legion Nectar deck, is very good, like very consistent, blah blah blah. This is better. Yes, you don't get to put the cards back into your deck, which I may try and figure out a way to Musketeer cross with this, so I can keep on filtering cards and keep putting my triggers back in, but this deck is really good. So I'll leave you with that. I think if you haven't tried this deck already, or haven't tried a deck like this already, you should try it out. And that's all I can say for now. I'm Towan, I've talked about Cardfight, I've probably rambled a little bit as well, but this is my Nectar deck, and have a nice day. Peace out.